Okay, so we're going to do this together. So again, this is another standard, standard deviation example. So again, just like in the other examples, right? We have to compute the mean first. So maybe step one here is a little redundant, I guess, because for the standard deviation, you have to compute actually the mean first. Then you have to compute the standard deviation, okay? All right. So the mean, what I got at least was, let me just see something. No, that's right. For some reason I thought the answer was different, but so I got 5, okay? This is what I got. You know, again, just like before, right? Add up the results, right? And you divide by how many there are. Okay? Right? And by doing so, what happens? We get 60 over 12, right? And we get 5. Okay, good. That's what we get here. I thought someone had a question for some reason. All right. Okay, so now what do we do next? Well, just like before, again, as I said before, calculating when I said in step 1 to calculate the mean, that's probably a little redundant because you have to do that anyway with standard deviation. Well, that's okay. Anyway, what we do next, at least what I did, was we list the data values, right? Then what do we do next? We subtract the mean. So if you did, again, if you did the other way around, if you did, for instance, 5 minus 8 here, you know, that's okay because we're squaring anyway. So this is what we get. We subtract the mean. Then we square. Square, 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 square. Okay, so that's what we do next, right? And what do you do next? We add up these entries together, as you can see. That's what I did over here. If we add them up, you get 58. Okay? I mean, probably what I did was I put this data in Excel, and they might have a standard deviation function. I think they do, but I still did it by hand. That is, I still said find the sum. So now remember, this is a sample, right? I think I said that. Yeah, this is a sample. Right? So we don't divide by 12, we divide by 11. See? And by doing that, we get 5.27. Got the numbers off. When you do that, you get the variance is 5.27. I don't know why I don't have that here, but that's easy to fix. 27. And then the standard deviation, of course, is just the square root of that. Let me just calculate that for you guys. I don't know. Why did I miss that? So the standard deviation is 2.30. Sorry about that. All right, cool. Does that make sense? I really hope it does. I know I made that error down here. I don't know how I missed that. Well, a lot on my plate now, I guess. All right. All right, hope that makes sense to everyone. Okay, so that's another example that we did, all right? So now what I want to do next is keep going. Let's do that. So we did this example, okay? Now, the next thing we have to do is another example. So this one's a little bit different. I know I'm doing a lot of examples here. However, one thing, it gives us better practice because I know standard deviation can be kind of tricky. But also notice here, we have a frequency table. We don't have the data listed out. If you went back to this one, we had the data listed out, okay? As you can see. Here we have a frequency table. That's okay. We're going to still determine the standard deviation. I mean, here's not as bad because you could list the data out directly as I'm doing here, but we don't have to do that. One thing, right, what we can do is this. Well, first we can get the mean, right? I mean, here the data is how many movies they watched. This is the frequency. Okay, so what would be the mean? Well, as before, we would do 0 times 5, right? 0 appears 5 times. 1 times 9. 1 appears 9 times in the data. So if you're adding up the data, you would do 1, you're adding 1 to itself 9 times, which is 1 times 9. You have 2 times 6, 3 times 4, 4 times 1, and so on. That's what I have down here. See? Doing so, notice that's 25 because if you were to add up these frequencies, you would get 25. So we get 37 over 25, which is 1.48. So that's our mean. Now we can get our standard deviation. Notice I'm not listing, I mean, here I did list the data. Really, I didn't have to. But in the next slide, I listed the data. I kept the frequency over here, right? But I'm only listing each data value once. I'm not listing it according to frequency, in other words. That's okay. What's nice is we don't have to. Namely, what do we do next? Well, so what do we do next? Remember, we subtract each data. From each data value, we subtract the mean, right? So I'm taking 0 minus the mean, which is this, right? And normally I would list this data 5 times down. I didn't want to make a table with 25 rows. No, we don't have to do that, and there's no reason to do that here. What would happen is we would have data minus mean listed 5 times. So we have this, then we have its square, which is this. So let me say it again. This is the data value, okay? Yes, this is the frequency, how many times it's listed. It appears that is in the sample data. But instead of listing it 5 times, let's just do this. Let's just list it once. We'll have the data minus the mean and square it. We do the same thing for the other values, right? We have 1 here, right? We subtract the mean and square it. 2, same thing. We subtract the mean and square it, right? This is the sample data we're dealing with. The frequency is not quite the sample data. It just tells you how many times each sample data is listed. 3, we do the same thing, right? We subtract the mean and square it. 4, same thing. Subtract the mean and square it. Now, now we want to add up the results, right? But remember, we multiply by the frequency. It's just like with the mean, right? Instead of listing each data value according to its frequency, we just multiply. Same thing here. So we add up the results, but we multiply by the frequency. Okay, that's what I'm doing. We're multiplying by the frequency. And remember, we're dividing by, since it's sample data, it's n minus 1 that we're dividing by. Okay, that's why we have 24. So we're dividing by that. And so we get this, which is our variance, and our standard deviation is this. Rounded, as you can see. I know this was another standard deviation example, but notice, though, it involves a frequency table. No, it's not like the other ones where we listed all the data, including repetition. I mean, essentially here we just had a frequency table, as you can see. And again, it's the same idea for each data value, each distinct one, I guess I could say. We got the mean. After we got the mean, that is, we subtracted the mean, we squared, we multiplied the square by the frequency. I hope everyone understands. Does everyone understand this? That is, let me ask this. Are there any questions? Okay. So this was standard deviation. Another, I guess, how do I say this? Another thing that people like to do is calculate what are called quartiles. Okay? Quartiles allow us to break up the data into quarters. I hope I'm saying it right. I think it's quartiles. Okay? So this is what we're saying. So this is what quartiles are. Okay? We're breaking up the data into quarters. Let me just pause the recording.